She walked into the luxury store she was once kicked out of, but this time, she wasn't just a customer, she was the new owner. And the manager who humiliated her. He had no idea what was coming. The city of Miami shimmered under the neon lights, its streets slick with fresh rain. The scent of damp asphalt mixed with the distant aroma of expensive perfume drifting from high-end boutiques. People bustled past in designer coats and polished shoes, their conversations blending into a hum of affluence. Amber Kingsley stood still in the middle of it all, gripping a worn leather wallet in her hands. Her heart pounded as she stared up at the illuminated sign of Prestige Luxe, one of the most exclusive luxury boutiques in the city. The last time she had stood in this exact spot, she had been a nobody, just a struggling young woman looking for a break. And the man inside, the one who had humiliated her that day, had made sure she knew she didn't belong. The memory burned fresh in her mind. 6 years ago, she had walked into the store in a second-hand coat, her nerves barely holding her together. She had just landed an interview at a promising firm and had come looking for something, anything, that would help her look the part. But before she could even browse, she had felt eyes on her. "Excuse me, miss, but we don't offer budget-friendly options here." She had turned to see him, Douglas Harper, the store's senior manager, dressed in an impeccable navy suit, his silver cufflinks gleaming under the crystal chandelier. His smile was sharp, laced with amusement, as he glanced at her outfit. "Perhaps you're in the wrong place." Amber had swallowed hard, trying to hold her ground. "I just wanted to. We cater to a very specific clientele," he had cut her off, his voice dripping with condescension. "And I don't believe you fit that category." The humiliation had been suffocating. People around her had turned, some whispering, others barely concealing their smirks. Her throat had tightened, and before she could even form a response, he had motioned towards the exit. "I suggest you try somewhere more appropriate." Amber had left without another word, her vision blurred with unshed tears. That night, she had promised herself that one day, she would walk back into that store, not as an outsider, but as someone they could never ignore. And now, the moment had arrived. She took a deep breath, her grip tightening on the paperwork inside her wallet. It was real. She owned this place now. Prestige Luxe belonged to her. Lifting her chin, she stepped forward, pushing open the heavy glass doors. The familiar scent of leather, cashmere, and expensive cologne wrapped around her, bringing back memories she had spent years trying to bury. But she wasn't that girl anymore. This time, she wasn't just another customer. This time, she was in control. Amber stepped inside, the soft chime of the boutique's entrance bell barely audible over the quiet hum of luxury. The air was thick with the scent of high-end perfumes and polished mahogany. Every detail of the store exuded opulence, from the sleek glass display cases filled with designer handbags to the velvet seating areas where only the wealthiest clients were invited to relax. She could feel the stares before she even made eye contact. The employees, dressed in crisp black uniforms, gave her a once-over, their expressions unreadable. But it wasn't them she was looking for. And then, she heard his voice. "May I help you?" It was smooth, controlled, yet laced with the same superiority she remembered all too well. Amber turned to face him. Douglas Harper. He hadn't changed much in 6 years. He still carried himself with the confidence of a man who believed he owned the world, or at least, this boutique. His suit was flawless, his hair neatly styled, his signature smug smile still in place. But as his gaze swept over her, that smile twitched, as if something about her presence unsettled him. "If you're looking for the sales section, I'm afraid we don't have one." There it was. The same tone. The same condescension. Amber didn't react. She merely tilted her head slightly, watching him as if she were studying a relic of her past. "I'm not looking for a sale," she said evenly. Douglas arched an eyebrow, his interest piqued. "Oh. Then perhaps you're here for a gift? A consultation, maybe?" We offer styling services, but they're by appointment only. Amber let the moment stretch, watching him dig his own grave with every assumption he made about her. Actually, she said finally, stepping closer, I'm here for something much more important. Douglas crossed his arms, still oblivious. Well, I'm afraid we don't cater to walk-ins. Prestige Luxe operates under exclusivity. Unless you have a membership. Amber pulled a folded set of documents from her bag and placed them on the nearest glass counter. I have something better than a membership, she said, her voice cool and unwavering. I have ownership. Silence. For the first time, Douglas's smirk faltered. He blinked, glancing down at the papers, his fingers twitching as if debating whether to reach for them. I'm sorry, what? I own this store now. The words landed like a slap. Amber watched as the blood drained from his face. He snatched the papers up, scanning them quickly, his lips pressing into a thin line as he reached the bolded section of the contract. His name was there, listed under Current Store Manager, and above it, her name, Amber Kingsley, Owner. His throat bobbed as he swallowed hard. This must be some kind of mistake, he murmured, though there was no conviction behind his words. Amber smiled, but there was no warmth in it. No mistake. Douglas looked at her again, and this time, there was something new in his eyes, something she had never seen before. Fear. For the first time, he wasn't the one in control. Douglas gripped the papers tighter, as if squeezing them would somehow change the words written on them. His usual confidence had vanished, replaced by a pale, unsettled expression. Amber could almost hear the gears turning in his head as he tried to process what was happening. This can't be right, he muttered, his voice lacking its usual arrogance. Amber merely crossed her arms and waited. She wanted him to feel this moment, to truly absorb the reality of it. The same way she had once stood here, humiliated, helpless against his judgment. I'm afraid it's very right, she said, her voice steady. I bought Prestige Luxe's parent company. As of this morning, I officially own every store under its name, including this one. Douglas finally looked up at her, his composure cracking. You, he hesitated, then let out a forced chuckle, though it sounded hollow. You expect me to believe that someone like you? Amber lifted an eyebrow. Someone like me, she echoed, daring him to finish that sentence. He hesitated again, realizing too late that he was dangerously close to digging himself an even deeper hole. I just mean. This store is extremely high-end. You must understand why this is surprising. Surprising for you, Amber corrected. Because you assumed I'd always be the girl you threw out years ago. Douglas opened his mouth, but no words came out. The other employees, who had been quietly observing the exchange, were now looking between them with wide eyes. Some of them seemed amused, others wary. They had never seen Douglas anything less than self-assured, and now he was visibly unraveling. Amber decided to push further. Tell me, Douglas, she said, her tone deliberately casual. Do you treat all customers the way you treated me back then? Or was I a special case? His jaw tightened. I don't recall ever treating you unfairly. Amber let out a short laugh. Oh, really? Then let me refresh your memory. She stepped closer, just enough to make him uncomfortable. You told me I wasn't the right clientele. You suggested I shop somewhere more appropriate. And then you smirked as you had me escorted out. So tell me, was that fair? Douglas shifted uncomfortably, gripping the papers like a lifeline. If that happened, then perhaps I misjudged the situation. Amber's smile didn't reach her eyes. If that happened, she repeated. You don't even have the courage to own up to it. She let the words sink in before delivering the final blow. Which is exactly why I'm making a change. Douglas stiffened. A change? Amber nodded. You're fired. The room went still. A pin could have dropped, and it would have sounded like an explosion. Douglas's eyes widened, the color draining from his face completely. "You can't." "I can." Amber's voice was like steel. "And I just did." He sputtered, his brain struggling to catch up. "Amber, wait. Let's be reasonable. I've been running this store for years. You need someone experienced. I need someone who treats people with respect." Douglas clenched his jaw, his face twitching with barely concealed frustration. "This is personal, isn't it?" he accused. "You're firing me over something that happened years ago." "I'm firing you because I don't trust you to represent my brand," Amber cut in sharply. "But if it makes you feel better, then yes. It is personal." Douglas's hands trembled slightly as he looked down at the contract again, his last shred of hope dissolving. Amber glanced at the security guard standing by the entrance. "Make sure he collects his things and leaves." The guard nodded, stepping forward. Douglas's breath came out shaky. He wasn't used to this. He wasn't used to being powerless. Amber turned away, giving him no further attention. He had once dismissed her like she was nothing. Now, she was doing the same to him. And for the first time, she was the one walking away victorious. Amber stood in the center of the boutique, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. Douglas was gone. The man who had once humiliated her, who had made her feel like she didn't belong, had just walked out of the store for the last time. So why didn't she feel as victorious as she thought she would? She exhaled, running a hand through her long chestnut hair. The silence that followed Douglas's departure was deafening. The employees still stood frozen in place, their gazes flickering between her and the door, unsure of what would happen next. Finally, one of them, a tall, blonde woman with a name tag that read Monica, stepped forward. "So, does this mean we're under new management?" she asked cautiously. Amber turned to her and nodded. "Yes. As of today, I'm the new owner." A murmur ran through the staff, a mix of curiosity and unease. Some of them looked relieved, others apprehensive. Amber could guess why. Douglas had ruled this store like a kingdom, and they had all played by his rules. With him gone, the future was uncertain. She needed to set the tone. "I know this is unexpected," she said, her voice clear and firm. "And I know some of you may have reservations about this transition. But let me be very clear, I didn't buy this store just to keep things the way they were." Monica exchanged glances with a few other employees, as if waiting to see where this was going. Amber continued. "Prestige Luxe has built a reputation for exclusivity, and while luxury will always be part of this brand, I refuse to let it become a place that looks down on people." Her gaze swept across the room, making sure everyone was listening. "That ends today." A silence stretched between them before a voice spoke up from the back. "And what does that mean for us?" Amber turned to see a young man in a sharp gray suit, his arms crossed. His expression was neutral, but his eyes were calculating. She didn't know his name yet, but she recognized his type, the kind who thrived under Douglas's reign, who had likely picked up a few of his habits. "That depends on you," Amber replied evenly. "I'm not here to fire everyone. But I am here to change the culture of this store. If you can adapt to that, you'll have no problem." The young man held her gaze for a moment, then gave a slow nod. "Understood." Amber knew it wouldn't be that simple. Some people would resist the changes she wanted to make. Some might even try to undermine her. But she had fought too hard to get here, she wasn't about to let anyone stand in her way. She turned to Monica. "How long have you been working here?" 3 years, Monica answered. "And in those 3 years, how often did Douglas turn people away because of how they looked?" Monica hesitated. "A lot," she admitted. "It was just, the way things were done." Amber nodded, expecting that answer. "That's changing." Effective immediately, we treat every customer with the same level of service, no matter how they're dressed, no matter what they look like. I don't care if they walk in wearing $1,000 suit or jeans and a hoodie, if they come through that door, they deserve respect. A few employees nodded. Others remained silent. Monica, however, straightened her posture. I like that, she said with a small smile. Honestly, I always hated how Douglas ran this place. It never felt right. Amber felt a flicker of relief. At least she wasn't alone in this. Good, she said. Because things are going to be different from now on. She turned, looking around the store that was now officially hers. For years, this place had been a symbol of everything she couldn't have. Now, it would become a symbol of everything she had built. And this was only the beginning. The next morning, Amber arrived at Prestige Luxe before the doors even opened. The boutique was quiet, the soft scent of leather and high-end perfumes lingering in the air. Sunlight filtered through the massive glass windows, casting golden streaks across the marble floors. It was the same store she had walked into 6 years ago, but now, it felt different. Because she was different. She took a deep breath, rolling her shoulders back. Today was her first full day as the official owner, and she was ready to set the tone. One by one, the employees began arriving, their footsteps echoing softly as they entered. Some looked hesitant, others curious. Monica was the first to greet her, offering a polite smile. Morning, boss, she said. Amber smirked at the word. Still getting used to that title. Monica chuckled. You'll get there. Everyone's a little on edge, though. Douglas ruled this place with an iron fist. Change makes people nervous. Amber expected that. No one thrived under a toxic boss without picking up a few survival habits. Then let's show them that change isn't something to be afraid of. She stepped into the center of the boutique and clapped her hands together, drawing everyone's attention. The staff gathered in a semicircle, exchanging wary glances. All right, everyone, Amber began. Now that we're officially under new management, I want to make a few things clear. She let her gaze travel across the room, making sure she had everyone's attention. I'm not here to micromanage. I'm not here to make anyone's job harder. But I am here to change the way this store operates. A murmur rippled through the group. The young man in the sharp gray suit, Nathan, she had learned his name was, crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. And what exactly does that mean? He asked. Amber didn't hesitate. It means we're getting rid of the elitist attitude. Effective immediately, we treat every customer the same. No more judging people based on their appearance. No more turning people away because they don't look wealthy enough. If someone walks in here, they deserve to be treated with the same respect as anyone else. Silence. Some of the employees exchanged uneasy glances, as if waiting for someone to push back. Then Monica spoke. I think that's a great idea. Amber saw a few heads nod in agreement. Not everyone looked thrilled, but at least no one was outright protesting. Nathan, however, wasn't convinced. With all due respect, Miss Kingsley, exclusivity is what makes this store different. Our clientele expects a certain atmosphere. Amber met his gaze evenly. Exclusivity is fine. Arrogance is not. I don't plan on turning this place into a bargain store, Nathan. But I refuse to run a business that humiliates people just because they don't fit some outdated idea of who deserves to shop here. Nathan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. Amber continued. If any of you have a problem with that, you're free to leave. No hard feelings. She let the words hang in the air, waiting to see if anyone would walk out. No one did. Good, Amber said with a nod. Then let's get to work. The tension in the room didn't disappear entirely, but it lessened. The employees slowly began dispersing, returning to their usual routines, though with a slightly different energy. Amber turned to Monica. "That could have gone worse," she muttered. Monica smirked. "Give it time. Change doesn't happen overnight. But you made an impression." Amber exhaled. She had won the first battle. But she knew there were more to come. And she was ready for them. That evening, as the last customer left Prestige Luxe and the staff began locking up, Amber retreated to the boutique's private office. It was a sleek, modern space with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, a mahogany desk, and shelves lined with designer lookbooks. The office had belonged to Douglas before, and the thought of sitting in his chair made her smirk. She dropped into the plush leather seat, rubbing her temples. The day had been exhausting. Implementing change was never easy, and she could already sense the quiet resistance from certain employees, especially Nathan. He hadn't openly defied her, but his skepticism was clear. Amber reached for her laptop, intending to go over the store's financial reports, when a sharp knock on the door pulled her attention away. "Come in." The door opened, and Monica stepped inside, holding a sleek black envelope. "This was left for you." Amber took the envelope and turned it over in her hands. It was expensive, the kind used for invitations or important documents. No sender's name. Just her own, written in elegant gold script. "Who left it?" Monica shrugged. "A courier." "No details." Amber's stomach tightened with unease. She carefully tore the seal and pulled out a folded letter. The moment she saw the handwriting, her fingers clenched around the edges. She knew that handwriting. It belonged to Douglas Harper. Monica must have noticed the way Amber's face changed because she stepped closer. "Bad news?" Amber hesitated before reading the note aloud. Amber. "I understand that I made mistakes. And I understand why you fired me. But people can change. I refuse to let one bad decision define me for the rest of my life. So I'm asking you, give me a chance to prove I can be better. Even if it means starting from the bottom. Sincerely. Douglas Harper." Monica let out a low whistle. "Well, that's unexpected." Amber said nothing. She just stared at the letter, emotions swirling in her chest. Douglas, the same man who had once treated her like she was nothing, was now asking her for a second chance. A bitter part of her wanted to crumple the letter and toss it in the trash. He hadn't cared about her second chances when she had needed them. He had dismissed her like she was invisible. But another part of her hesitated. She had fought for years to prove that she wasn't the same girl he had thrown out of the store. She had worked to become stronger, wiser, more successful. And wasn't the true measure of power the ability to choose how to wield it? She could destroy him. Or she could redeem him. Monica cleared her throat, breaking the silence. "So, what are you going to do?" Amber took a deep breath and folded the letter carefully. "I don't know yet." But deep down, she had a feeling she was about to make the hardest decision of her life. Amber sat in her office long after Monica left, the weight of Douglas's letter pressing against her palm. The idea of giving him a second chance felt wrong. This was the man who had humiliated her, who had made her feel small, unworthy. Why should she extend kindness to someone who had denied it to her? And yet, a part of her hesitated. Hadn't she spent years fighting against the idea that people were only as good as their worst moments? Hadn't she sworn to build something better than the toxic culture Douglas had created? If she refused to believe that people could change, wouldn't she be just like him? Amber sighed and pulled out a blank notepad, tapping the end of a pen against the desk as she considered her options. Option 1, ignore the letter. Douglas had made his bed, and now he could lie in it. Option 2, give him a second chance, but on her terms. The more she thought about it, the more she realized she didn't just want revenge. She wanted growth, not just for herself, but for this store, for the people working here, and for the reputation she was building. She exhaled sharply and grabbed her phone. Before she could change her mind, she typed out a response. Douglas. Meet me at Prestige Luxe tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. sharp. We'll talk then. Amber. She hit send before she could overthink it. The next morning. Amber arrived at the boutique early, her nerves on edge. The store wasn't open yet, and only Monica and Nathan had arrived to begin the morning setup. At exactly 9 a.m., the glass doors swung open. Douglas Harper stood on the threshold, looking nothing like the confident, arrogant manager she remembered. His usually impeccable suit was replaced with a simple gray button-up and dark slacks. There were faint lines under his eyes, as if he hadn't slept well. For the first time since she had known him, Douglas looked nervous. Amber folded her arms and leaned against the counter. You're on time. Douglas gave a stiff nod. I figured I shouldn't be late for the most important conversation of my career. She gestured toward the seating area in the back of the store. Let's talk. They sat across from each other, the tension thick between them. Douglas rested his hands on his knees, his fingers twitching slightly. He opened his mouth, but Amber cut him off before he could start with empty apologies. Why are you really here? Douglas exhaled, his posture deflating slightly. Because I lost everything. And I deserve that. But I also know I was wrong. He paused, running a hand over his face. Amber, I spent years thinking I was untouchable. That my way of running this store was the only way. And then, in one day, I lost everything. And for the first time, I realized how it must have felt for you back then. Amber's jaw clenched. You can't undo what you did to me. I know. His voice was quiet. But I can try to be better. Amber studied him, searching for signs of deception. She had seen him at his most ruthless. Was this just another performance? What do you want from me, Douglas? A job, he admitted. Not as a manager. I know I don't deserve that. I'll take any position, stockroom, janitor, cashier. I just want a chance to prove I can change. Amber was silent for a long time. Then, finally, she leaned forward. 3-month probation. You start at the bottom, and you take orders from every single person in this store. Including me. Douglas nodded immediately. Understood. If I hear even one complaint about your attitude, you're gone. I won't mess this up. His voice was steady. Amber studied him one last time. And then, she extended her hand. Douglas hesitated for a second before shaking it. As their hands met, Amber realized something. This wasn't just about giving him a second chance. It was about proving to herself that she had one. Not through vengeance. But through power, choice, and growth. Douglas's first day back at Prestige Luxe was nothing like his past life as the store's manager. Amber made sure of that. Instead of standing at the front, overseeing sales with his usual air of superiority, he was in the stockroom, unpacking shipments. Instead of schmoozing with high-end clients, he was steaming clothes, ensuring they were pristine before they hit the floor. Amber watched from a distance, curious to see how he handled it. Would he break? Would his pride get in the way? Would he revert to the same arrogant man she had once known? To her surprise, he didn't complain. He moved quietly, methodically, following instructions from Monica and the other employees. He didn't argue when assigned tedious tasks. He didn't roll his eyes when asked to assist with something beneath his former status. At one point, Amber caught him carefully stacking designer shoes in the stockroom, his brow furrowed in concentration. It was strange. Seeing Douglas humbled, seeing him work instead of command, it felt surreal. But the real test would come when he faced customers. 1 month later. By the end of his first month, Douglas had settled into his new role. He no longer looked uncomfortable doing the menial tasks he once deemed unworthy of his time. He greeted employees with quiet nods rather than condescending smirks. Amber could admit, he was trying. But she needed to see more than effort. She needed to see change. And the opportunity presented itself on an ordinary afternoon. A young woman entered the boutique, her clothes simple and worn, her sneakers scuffed at the edges. She lingered near the entrance, clearly hesitant to step further inside. Amber immediately recognized the look in her eyes. The same look she had worn 6 years ago. Amber remained where she was, watching. Douglas was nearby, folding a stack of scarves. He saw the girl. Amber's heart pounded. Would he ignore her? Would he make her feel like she didn't belong? Would he repeat his old mistakes? Douglas took a breath, then walked toward the girl. "Welcome to Prestige Luxe," he said. His voice was calm, free of the arrogance it once carried. "Can I help you find anything?" The girl looked up at him, surprised. I just wanted to look around," she said hesitantly. Douglas nodded. "Of course. Take your time. Let me know if you need anything." Then, without hesitation, he stepped aside, giving her space. Amber exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. It was a small moment. A simple exchange. But it was proof. Douglas Harper was no longer the man he used to be. 6 months later. Prestige Luxe had transformed. The store still had its exclusivity, its luxury, but it was no longer a place that made people feel less than. Customers of all backgrounds walked through its doors, knowing they would be treated with respect. The staff had adapted to Amber's vision, and even Nathan, who had once been skeptical, had come to embrace the change. And Douglas? Douglas had earned his place back, not as a manager, but as a leader. Amber had kept her word. After 3 months of probation, she had promoted him back to a senior sales position. But he wasn't the same man who once wielded power carelessly. He had become someone better, someone who understood the weight of his actions, who treated customers and employees alike with decency. One evening, after closing, Douglas approached Amber at the front desk. "You never had to give me a second chance," he said. Amber met his gaze, considering his words. "No, I didn't," she admitted. "But I wanted to prove that this place could be different." Douglas nodded, his expression serious. "I hope I've proven that I am, too." Amber studied him for a long moment. Then, she smiled. "Yeah. You have." As she turned off the boutique's lights for the night, Amber realized something. Her victory hadn't been in firing Douglas. Her real victory had been in creating something better, something lasting. And for the first time in years, she felt at peace. This story isn't just about revenge or proving someone wrong, it's about growth, redemption, and the power of second chances. Amber had every reason to destroy Douglas, to make him feel the same humiliation she once endured. But true strength isn't about tearing others down, it's about rising above the past and shaping a better future. Instead of letting bitterness consume her, she chose to rebuild, not just a store, but a culture, a mindset, a new way of doing business. And Douglas? He represents the reality that people can change, but only if they're willing to. He started this journey as a man who wielded power selfishly, but by the end, he understood what it meant to earn respect instead of demanding it. His redemption wasn't instant or easy, but it was real. This story is a reminder that success isn't just about winning, it's about how you choose to win. Amber didn't just reclaim her place in Prestige Luxe, she redefined what it meant to truly belong. And in doing so, she didn't just change her own life, she changed the lives of those around her. Because real power isn't in revenge. It's in transformation.